a child. If it's child-directed, it's most valuable. And this kind of play flourishes in the early years. Unfortunately, it's with the overscheduling, also putting kids in school at earlier and early ages that are academically oriented. Kindergartens no longer have much play. They're very academic. Preschools are getting more academic. So I believe that we have to stop this trend of getting kids ready for a high-pressured academic world too early and give them a chance to be children. They need it for their development. They need to feel free and enjoy their childhood and to develop their imaginations. Also, take them to the park.
Right.
And don't direct the play, but just be there with the kid and let the kid play in the park.
Right.
Very few kids in Central Park. Most of the time you see parents, they're on their cell phone walking the kid along, and the kid's in a stroller, the kid's not even walking, and they finally get to the playground that's enclosed, and then they let them free, and then they're hovering over them. Give the child a chance to walk in the park and look at the grass and be themselves and explore. They don't have to be in a stroller the whole time. Right. They can walk.
I read the term hyper-parenting, and that's, I guess, when parents try to be involved in every little detail of the children's imagination and activities. Do you think a large part of this might be that parents are trying to relive their childhood through their children, put them in everything they didn't get an opportunity to do?
I think they're mostly good intentions. We do have, the anxiety-driven parents, the catastrophic, if my child doesn't get into Harvard, then he's going to be a total failure, that, real black or white thinking. But I think some parents just want to provide for their kids what they just didn't have the opportunities. They also would like their children to stay out of trouble. I think a lot of these are the motivations behind the hyper-parenting. But also this belief that everything must be controlled.
Right, right. And you said you see the results on the adult side.
Absolutely. And I see it with the children as well. They're burnt out, they're anxious, they're depressed, they have these somatic problems. So it's just balance is the key word.
So there really are a lot of pitfalls and side effects to hyperparenting and overscheduling the children.
Do you think there? Oh, go ahead.
Well, we don't have in the society enough of the old-time after-school playgrounds, the community playgrounds where people could send their children and their children are safe. We have dual working families where both parents are out working and they want their children to be safe while they're gone. And just having them in the house with the babysitter may not be enough, especially in this city. We've seen some horrible nanny stories. So they put them in these structured environments where they're learning something, they're with other children, and they're hopefully safe. So that it's not just that they also want to groom super children. They want to keep these beautiful children they have safe.
That's right.
Yeah, I've often thought that if we could have any innovation, it would be to have a supervisor or a park attendant in a park who just keeps an eye on the kids. And doesn't have to structure the play. It doesn't have to be an organized soccer league where the coaches are telling the kids where to move at each point of the way. But just have somebody who watches out to make sure they're safe and gives the kids a chance to play. When I grew up, and I don't know if all of you had that, they were park attendants like that. They would hand out balls and bats in some games.
We had that, and especially in our summer programs, we would,
and money put into that. The Parks Department say we don't have the funding for this sort of thing, but that would be so valuable for children.
Yeah. Well, we do have to take a short break, and we'll talk a little bit more about that when we come back. But when we return, how much is too much? Are we trying to turn our children into super kids? We'll explain that when we come back. Stay with us.
It's never too early to start reading to your kids.
Are you prepared for what awaits you?
There are amazing possibilities when you open a child's mind to reading. Log on to the Library of Congress website and let the journey begin.
Welcome back to New York Now. We've been talking about overscheduling kids and whether it will have a positive or negative effect on them in the long run. What is a super kid? We ended the last segment talking about the super kid phenomenon. What does that mean exactly?
What it means to me is a superhero, someone who can do everything and anything, and just the boundaries are keep pushing out this way, just too much.
And so in our attempt to put them in everything and make them well-rounded and make them that superhero, we might be doing just the opposite. Is that the idea?
Yes, the assumption is that we can make the kid into something, and we control them like mold a piece of clay.
Right.
Children come in with their own personalities, their own interests, their own passions. And we have to observe that and pay attention to the child's own interests and give them opportunities. Don't try to take charge all the time.
Dr. Crane, let me ask you, you have 3 older children,
Yes.
and then you have a couple of grandchildren now.
Yes.
Do you see a difference in the way that you parented your children and now the way that they're parenting their children?
There's some difference. I think that we were somewhat more relaxed.
Okay.
And the anxiety is up into earlier ages. With the toddlers, 1 and 2-year-olds, we were more comfortable just walking along and letting the kids walk. And we tried to tell that, of course, to our children who are now parents.
Right.
And so they pick up some of that, and that's for the good. But the anxiety is intense. Somehow parents have been made so anxious that the children are going to enter some global, you hear the term, the global economy of the future, of the 21st century. They have to be able to compete. And it comes from the highest levels of education and government.
It's almost like we need a parenting model or a book that you can read that teaches you all these things that a psychologist knows about the way the mind works and how overscheduling is actually having an adverse effect. You write a lot and consult on parenting and family issues. What do you tell parents? Because you're a mother yourself, but what do you tell other parents about keeping that happy balance?
Yeah, there are 2 pieces of advice that I like that are they're real old school advice. The first is borrowed. Someone gave it to me when I was pregnant, and he asked me how I felt about it, and I told him I was a little nervous, first child. And he said, you know what, if you listen, that child will tell you how to raise it. And if you listen, that child will tell you which activities it wants, whether it's inclined to do art or music or science, but you have to pay attention. And as a parent, that means sometimes just stepping back and observing. The other piece of advice I'd give that we don't do a lot because we're so busy being overscheduled is to schedule family time. Even if that means dropping one of these other activities, that's the most important scheduled activity you can have.
Family time.
And it doesn't have to be dinner because your work schedules may not allow it. It can be breakfast, it could be brunch on Saturday, it could be some weekly activity, just whatever works for you.
It's funny, you mentioned listening to your kids and eventually they'll tell you what they want to be, but then you see these Tiger Woods and Serena and Venus Williams and you see these child prodigies and you think, wow, well they couldn't have possibly known at 3 years old that they were going to be a great golf player or tennis player, so maybe if I just put that golf club in their hand and put them in a few lessons, then maybe they'll listen to me instead of me having to listen to them. But is that really the wrong approach, you think?
My concern with that is, when is a child good enough? There's this idea that if they're not Tiger Woods, then what are they? And there's this measure, our measure of achievement is our measure of worth as individuals, and we're not valuing our children for who they are. We're not sending that message that I want to spend time with you, I love you for you, as opposed to for the score that you got on your baseball team, which is going to get you into the best college, which is going to mean that you're a success.
Right. But then, and again, I know I keep going back because I want to play the other side of the card, being a parent and what you think. There's also that thought as a parent that if I don't expose my children to certain things, I won't know if they have that talent. If they've never been exposed to an instrument, I might not know if they might be a Wynton Marsalis in the make. It's
okay to expose them to things, but then watch their interests and watch what they take. They'll start taking an increasingly keen interest in certain things that comes out of their own natural tendencies, and they will become very passionate about those. As long as the child is taking the lead, I think you're safe to expose them to things. They may not want to take up soccer. They may want to draw, or they may want to may want to kick balls around, or they may want to just go out and look at a brook or a pond or a puddle of water. Water is fascinating, sand is fascinating, dirt is fascinating. People, parents and teachers wonder, well, how can we afford to give our children time to just puddle in the water and pick up sand and dirt? But they're developing their senses and developing their feeling for the natural world. we have a crisis now where we wonder, what are we doing to the natural world? It's very important that children develop a sensitivity and a bond with the natural world. They do this early on.